How did Jon Jones survive Tom Aspinall interrogation at UFC 309? Literally since the beginning of UFC 309 Fight Week, the media has been relentless and has been so eager to get a reaction out of Jon Jones on whether he will be fighting Tom Aspinall in the future. So Jon Jones went on to defeat Stipe Miocic with that crazy third round knockout victory. That spinning back kick was so vicious, and now all UFC fans are so desperate to know if and when the Tom Aspinall fight will happen. I really think Jon Jones wanted to make UFC 309 all about his own legacy. So here are the ways that I think Jon Jones made UFC 309 the Jon Jones show. So let's recap the ways that Jon Jones escaped all the drama. Firstly, at the beginning of Media Day press conferences, Jon Jones had a pretty straightforward and confident response when reporters asked whether he will be fighting Tom Aspinall in the future. Here's what Jon Jones had to say.
But if I'm being completely honest, I feel like Tom's been such an asshole that I don't want to do business with him. He does nothing for me. If you're a person that wants to see me really challenged, then I get it.
I have to admit, I'm not from the generation of UFC fans who got to really witness Jon Jones' rise to greatness in the UFC when he became champion at such a young age of 23. But just from watching all of his interviews during Fight Week, I really do admire how well-spoken and eloquent Jon Jones is. He is so confident, and I think he has incredible mic skills. Of course, we all know that UFC president Dana White has always been a really big advocate for Jon Jones himself.
As long as this guy is active, he's the best. He's the pound for pound best in the world, and he's the greatest of all time. Thank you.
And it's clear that Jon Jones was loving the camaraderie himself. Speaking of the press conference, news did come out around the time that Tom Aspinall, the interim heavyweight champion, was not welcome at the press conference or even the weigh-ins.
I asked to be at the press conference.
Oh, you did?
No.
Whether this was at the request of Jon Jones, we will probably never know, but I think Jon Jones did a really great job of ensuring that he was the star of his own show. Fans in New York did start to chant Tom Aspinall's name, but clearly it didn't faze Jon Jones as people thought, as he went on to secure such a dominant victory. He simply told them to knock it off.
Knock it off.
We can't deny that Tom Aspinall is such a huge prospect in the UFC at the moment. He's been on this brutal knockout spree, putting huge figures to sleep from the likes of Sergey Pavlovich and Curtis Blades. And I really do think that fans are beginning to love Tom Aspinall. I've seen quite a few of the interviews he's done while out in New York, and it's clear from the comments that fans are really beginning to like his character and just really want to see him become champion. Despite all of Tom Aspinall's activities during UFC 309 Fight Week, Jon Jones has not let this overshadow his own spotlight. Like, he literally walked away from an interview when he realized that the interviewer had a close relationship with Tom Aspinall. So the interviewer was Adam Cattrall from TNT Sports, and I've seen him do quite a few interviews with Tom Aspinall before, but I was super impressed with how professional Adam was in reaction to Jon Jones walking away from his interview literally at the last minute. Like, I probably would have been gutted. But then again, I admire Jon Jones for having that kind of confidence to say no to things that he's not comfortable with. I've seen Adam's interviews in the past with several UFC stars, and I think they are so fun and entertaining, and we find out so much about fighters, so I think regardless, Jon Jones would have had a really good interview with him. Jon Jones said he thought the interview would just be an Aspinall fest, and I think that was a pretty funny choice of words. Meanwhile, Tom Aspinall has been out in New York literally living his best life. I've been keeping up with some of his YouTube vlogs he's been posting recently, and I think they are so funny and entertaining. I really like his whole northern attitude to things, which you will understand if you are from the UK.
Right. Doesn't seem to work when you smile at people.
So Tom Aspinall was the backup fighter for the event, and in this vlog he was out on this run in Central Park, and his dad was on these carriage bike rides that they have in Central Park, and it just reminded me that I actually went on one of these carriage bike rides when I was in New York myself, and I have to say that it was such a scam. So did anyone else have that experience? Because the bike ride person literally took us into one entrance and then made us come out of another entrance quite quickly, and I did not get the full Central Park tour. So has that happened to anybody else? So yeah, the point I'm getting at here is that despite Tom Aspinall absolutely doing the most in New York and trying to get some acknowledgement, Jon Jones was not giving in to any of it and again made sure that UFC 309 was the Jon Jones show. I did mention earlier in the video that I do admire Jon Jones's like eloquent and calm attitude when answering questions, but it was quite cool to see his more intense side come out at the press conference face-off when he refused to shake Stipe's hand. Like, the heated tension and rivalry is what gets fans most excited for a fight. Like, if fighters are hugging and getting on before a fight, fans are not going to be so excited to see what's going to play out in the octagon. But yeah, the handshake refusal, I think, was because Jon Jones believed that Stipe had said something negative about his children or mentioned his children, but that was all a misunderstanding, and I think that was cleared up later, as at the ceremonial weigh-ins, Jon Jones did shake Stipe's hand. But just to recap again, Jon Jones did end UFC 309 in the most formidable way. That spinning back kick, I believe, caused some quite serious injuries to Stipe. I think it was probably a rib fracture. But guys, there was someone who did almost steal the entire show from Jon Jones, and that was President-elect Donald Trump. There was all this speculation on whether Donald Trump was going to come out at UFC 309, and he actually did. But Jon Jones made sure to build off the Donald Trump hype that was going on in the MSG arena, and he did the Donald Trump dance, which I think is absolutely hilarious. And clearly Donald Trump was loving it himself. He even handed his heavyweight title to Donald Trump. Tom Aspinall arrived at UFC 309 in this luxury big fur coat, and still that wasn't enough to get Jon Jones' attention like Donald Trump did. At the end of the fight, Tom Aspinall was there waiting to get a call out and perhaps get himself into the octagon to do a face-off, but that didn't even happen. He was there on the sidelines with his dad, who's also his coach, and it looks like they were really waiting for their moment, and I actually kind of feel bad for Tom Aspinall because he's come all that way to New York and he didn't get the kind of acknowledgement that he wanted. And it definitely would have been a super viral UFC moment. So even though Tom Aspinall flew all that way from Manchester to New York and didn't get the acknowledgement, I do still think that the Jon Jones and Tom Aspinall fight will happen. But let's not forget, Jon Jones was not completely dismissive of Tom Aspinall in the octagon, as he did say in his post-fight octagon interview with Joe Rogan that he still is yet to talk with Dana and Hunter, and perhaps then we will give the fans the fight that they really want to see. Again, all eyes were on Jon Jones at the post-fight press conference, and reporters were still so desperate to ask the questions about Tom Aspinall. And Jon Jones did say that money will be one of the biggest motivating factors for him to take that fight. Personally, like I said before, I do think that Jon Jones will fight Tom Aspinall. Dana White has said in previous interviews that knowing Jon Jones, he is not the kind of person to turn down such a challenge. And I do have this theory that Jon Jones has been not so forthright and certain in wanting to fight Tom Aspinall simply just to build hype, because Dana White wants Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall to be the biggest fight in the UFC's heavyweight history. So it only makes sense that Jon Jones acts the way he does and only focuses on his own legacy and confidence at the moment and makes it all about himself to build the hype for that fight in the future. Regardless of what anybody is saying, I do think that Jon Jones just proved himself to be such a formidable and incredible sports personality. And I guess we will just have to wait and see what happens next. So guys, let me know your thoughts on UFC 309 in the comments below, and let me know your thoughts on the whole Jon Jones and Tom Aspinall drama and whether you think that fight will happen. Please don't forget to share and like this video and subscribe to my channel.